Bodies Podcast, WATP.
There's a user came into our subreddit recently, Kibble and Bliss. And they posted this podcast that came out in 2016. It's called The Peripheral, hosted by Justin Evans. And what this Redditor is telling us is that this show had a guest on their show, one Marissa Jones. Now, if you remember Marissa Jones, her photo is right over there. We still highlight her here on WATP because she's the host of the Vanish podcast, and she actively tried to ruin my life. And I haven't forgotten it, nor will I. Well, according to this Redditor, and I believe it to be true, she poses as a woman named Kathy on this show, and she tells a story about something that happened in her life. And this is the disclaimer. It's a weird disclaimer before she comes on the show.
This is by no means a defense of drunk driving and the actions that she'd taken. We do not condone it whatsoever. Please understand that the intention of this episode is so other people can hear what it's like to be charged with a DWI and all the horrible ramifications that go along with it.
All right, so they're not encouraging you to drink and drive. That's good to know. I would think that would be a bad look if they were doing that. So let's find out what happened to the person who I believe to be Marissa Jones. Now, I do have some evidence that we'll reveal in a moment, but it sounds exactly like Marissa Jones. And I did see speculation on multiple subreddits about this, on true crime subreddits. A lot of people talking about this.
I ended up hitting a parked car. I didn't hit the car coming towards me, which it was like my saving grace that I hit a car that nobody was in.
Yeah.
So the next thing I remember is being at my house. Now, my house is about a mile away from where the accident happened, very close. I had driven my car home, and I remember my car was damaged, very damaged. It ended up being totaled.
So already I'm going, hold on a second. This story is nuts. She hit a parked car and just drove a mile. Very close.
Yeah.
In a totaled car.
Yeah.
In a car that you couldn't fix because it's not worth it.
Story's not checking out.
No,
Yeah, it sounds crazy, right?
Also doesn't remember anything after hitting the car, just that she arrived at home.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was a mile of...
That's an important aspect of the story based on the complaining that she's going to do on this podcast. This is nuts.
And there was never a point where I said to myself, I'm going to flee the scene and go home. I didn't say, I didn't make that conscious decision. I don't remember driving home.
Yeah, you don't remember driving home. You don't know if you made that decision or not. You probably did. You're like, fuck, I gotta get out of here.
Sounds like you did.
Yeah. She's like, it's not like I was trying to flee the accident or something, get away with it. It's like, no, that's precisely what you were doing.
She got home and said, did I just flee the scene?
What just happened in the last 3 or 4 minutes?
I remember hitting the car, the main crux of this. I remember doing that, committing the crime, I guess.
Yeah.
And after that, it gets a bit fuzzy.
Well, I love how she got caught. Because she's describing they were at this bar. They stayed longer than she thought they were going to. They had more drinks than she thought she was going to have. Story as old as time. The band was good. What are you going to do? So then she drives down this tight little alleyway, and there's cars parked on both sides, and the car's coming towards her, so she just drives into a parked car.
As one does.
Smart decision. I can't imagine what that car looks like if her car's totaled.
great.
Right. How fast was she going? But let's find out how she got caught.
Because
And by the way, I don't condone this. I know it sounds like we're having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
because of the damage to my car, I was kind of dragging the front passenger side tire, and it left a drag mark all the way to my house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's like an arrow. Yeah. So the person wakes up, they hear a crash, they go, oh shit, my car's totaled. And then they look down and there's a fucking trail all the way to her driveway.
A mile of that shit.
I had some breadcrumbs in my pocket. I had no idea.
The cops show up, you're like, how'd you find me? So then the police show up to her house. So she says she goes home. She's very drunk. She passes out. And she's like, yeah, I knew I had to get my car fixed in the morning, but whatever. I'm going to sleep it off. And then she gets woken up by a police officer or two. And she's not thrilled with the questioning.
They started questioning me, and I was really confused still. Like, they didn't ask me, like, were you injured or anything? And I was really confused about what was going on and what had happened. They were, asking me question after question after question, and I'm like, I don't know. I was really confused, and I was kind of afraid of incriminating myself.
Oh, there's the truth. There's where the truth came out. They didn't even ask how I was feeling.
I know.
I can't believe it.
The
Yeah.
balls on this lady. Yeah, what were they supposed to do? Tell you a story?
I waffled a kid on a bike at a crosswalk, and they didn't even ask me if I was okay.
Yeah, right.
It's insane.
Did you spill your drink?
I can't imagine going through this and then going on a podcast and being like, and these cops are jerks.
Yeah.
Can't believe
Doing their fucking job.
what they're all up to. So then she says she refuses the breathalyzer, and she explains why.
They handcuffed me. I refused to do the breathalyzer, but I requested a blood test because they're typically more accurate. Took me.
Hold on a second. Accuracy is the concern here. She
That's
admits
what
she's
I'm
drunk.
concerned with all the time.
Was it the reason why, in my mind, the reason why I would refuse a breathalyzer and wanted a blood test? It takes longer. You would be able to get some of that alcohol out of your system. I believe the John math is if it's been 1 hour and you've had 2 beers, I'm already lost. Never mind.
Wait, how many shots?
Took me to the hospital to get a blood test. Now, if I were to refuse and the blood test too, I would have immediately lost my license for a year, no questions asked. So that's kind of one of the things with the law where even if you had nothing to drink and you refuse it, then you lose your license. So
Isn't that incredible?
yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the case here, right? Because you were drunk and driving a car around. I love that she goes, this is crazy, but if you refuse to do the breathalyzer, they take your license away. Well, if you're not drunk, then just do the breathalyzer. Then. Yeah. It's a pretty
Also,
easy solution.
she's wrong. She's wrong. No questions asked. They asked, will you take a breathalyzer?
A lot of questions.
It was
asked,
one of those
actually.
questions,
Yes. Numerous questions. And then she gets to the hospital. So she's the one who said, I refused the breathalyzer. I wanted a blood test. They get to the hospital and they're like, okay, time for your blood test. She's like, nope. I want my attorney. I want this. I want that. Like, ma'am, it's 1 a.m. We're not calling an attorney. You have to take a test or you lose your license and you go to jail. Those are your options. And she's like, I can't believe those are my options. Like, well, you're the one who smashed up a car that drove parts of it back to your house.
Yeah, and drew a line to your house.
Yeah. You looked like you had just gotten married with the shit hanging off the back bumper. All right. So, and then she's complaining about the details in the police report for some reason.
There was a lot of discrepancies between the police report and what happened that night. The time was completely different. And it's not just me saying that. And you would say, oh, well, you were drunk. But there were other people, like the time, like one of the times on the police report, like they were saying the accident happened later than it did because the place that we were drinking closed that night at a certain time. And I only dropped a friend off, came back around. There's no way it would have taken me that long.
Well, I don't know how accurate that is. You know what I mean? First off, who cares what the time is? What difference does it make? It was that night, some point that night, whenever it was reported or found or whatever.
But also, there are other people who believe me. My other drunk friends, their time frame isn't right either.
Well, she said earlier, and I was going to go back and clip it after I heard that, but I'll just tell you, I'll just report on it. When she said that she stayed later than she thought she was going to, they went to go see this bluegrass band, and the band was really good. And she goes, so we ended up staying to like 9 or 10. But then she goes, well, I know when the bar closed, so it couldn't have been. It's like, well, wait a second. You said you left around 9 or 10?
Yeah.
You only had an hour window. You weren't sure. So it's so dumb. Like, why would you even bring this part up? Like, you're obviously in the wrong on this. And so Justin, who I think is trying to take her side, trying to make her feel that, you're not the one who's crazy here.
Carl, I have a question. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And maybe you said this at the beginning and I missed it. What podcast is this? Like, what's the point of this particular show?
That's a great
question. Is it to bring on people that broke the law?
It's called The Peripheral, and they do interview guests each week. And I only cared about this one. Okay. So I didn't do any further research than
That's
that.
okay. All right.
I'm not the one on trial here.
As much as I don't condone or think that drinking and driving is okay, it is annoying to me that people think when you're drunk, all of a sudden you're equivalent to someone being on LSD and you have no concept of anything and you see things and you're hallucinating. Like, no. I would assume that we've all been drunk. Most of America drinks. You know what it's like, and you know that you're not. As long as you're not blacked out drunk, you're kinda, you remember what song was playing on the radio.
Yeah.
You remember details.
Well, two things here. First off, she was blackout drunk. She didn't remember driving home. She mentioned that. Secondly, I love when he goes, it's not like you're tripping or something. It's like, well, when you're on LSD, you would definitely know what time it was. That's not a hard concept to figure out. When you're drunk, you could lose sight of a lot of things going on around you. So I don't know what his point was.
It's almost
there.
like you vanish.
I don't know what his point was there. It's just like, you weren't that fucked up. You were just wasted. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's such a bizarre take to be like, listen, we've all been drunk and driven cars around before.
Yeah.
I don't know what the big deal is here.
This gets crazier. In fact, since you said that, I'm going to skip to this track.
Most of the people in there, it's not like when you go into the courtroom and there's like the people coming in all chained to each other. These are normal people that you wouldn't expect to see in a courtroom.
What, like 80-something% of the population drinks alcohol, and almost 90% of the population drives cars. So it
happens.
Yeah,
It happens. I love it. She smashes up her car on a parked car when she's wasted driving around, and he's like, "I'm sure everyone does that every week."
I'm a heavy drinker. I've never done that. I have to say.
I absolutely love the overlap where it's like 90% drive cars, 80% drink. You put those two things together, 85% of the people out there are drunk driving.
Yeah. I think I just laid out the facts pretty well just now, right? It's pretty obvious what's going on. All right. So she has to go, in order to get out of the DUI and not get her license suspended and all that stuff so she can continue to work, she has to take these classes and things, and she's not happy about the cost of these things or the questions being asked.
In the meantime, I had to go to this county agency and get a drug and alcohol evaluation. That cost me, I want to say about between $200 and $300 for that evaluation. Took about 2 hours, and they just asked me a ton of questions. I mean, these were crazy, crazy questions. Some of them like, what kind of birth control do you use? You have to answer it. Some of it's absurd, but they ask you things like,
somehow your birth control's relevant to this.
I don't know. I was like, what? And they're like, well, we only ask women this question. I'm like, what? Okay.
So it's sexist.
Yeah.
Well, why would you ask a man what kind of birth control he uses? The guy goes, well, that sounds very sexist. Like, well, no, just logically, you'd ask the woman that, not the man.
I couldn't even believe. I went into the hospital recently. I thought I had broken my foot. I didn't. But before they gave me the X-ray, they didn't even ask me when I had my last period.
What?
I couldn't believe
That's
that question was
sexist.
not asked. I know.
Well, and I was thinking about this. So she had to answer all these questions. She's like, why would they care about what birth control? Well, maybe if you're like wildly irresponsible and you're taking Plan B every other weekend, they might think that you're an alcoholic. I don't know. Seems possible.
Closing the bar every night.
Yeah. So,
I mean, my favorite thing is the $200, where it's like $200 on top of, I guess, whatever it cost me to fix my car. Like, this is really adding up.
I would be embarrassed to complain about that on the internet.
I'm glad you picked up on that, because this continues on where she says, and then I have to hire an attorney, and that cost me this, and then I had to do this thing, and that cost me this. So that she's constantly adding up the amount of money it costs. And yeah, it sucks. Getting a DUI sucks. It costs a lot of money. We all know that. But she hired an attorney, and her attorney did what all good attorneys do, Vince, lied.
So my attorney goes in and talks to her with this story, and he says she forgot her phone and she went home to call the police. Now, if we're going with their timeline, she says, well, she should have stopped and started knocking on doors. And he was like, well, she was really disoriented. She hit her head. And do you really want a young woman out at 10:30 at night knocking on people's doors?
So they explain, why didn't she call 911 when she had the accident? Why did she just flee? And the attorney goes, she forgot her phone at home. Which is, by the way, never happened to a woman ever in the history of the world. No woman would get to the bar and be like, oh, I forgot my phone. All right, whatever. So this band's pretty good. You know what I mean? That's just not a thing. Yeah. So not a great lie.
Crazy, Carl. Who would go on a podcast and say all this and not immediately email the guy and be like, "Can you never air this? This is
especially if
mistake.
You're Marissa Jones of The Vanished. It seems crazy to do this." I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was actually compelled by this because I'm like, "Is this woman's complaining?"
So she's that delusional, and it does kind of check out that she would want to ruin someone's life over nothing.
Oh,
yes, and the way that she treats the families and the way she talks about the police on The Vanished, where she's just like, and these cops aren't doing shit. And you know what they do? You know what they are up to, though, is charging me with a DUI.
And asking me questions.
Yeah. They said I should have left the scene of the accident.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Listen, if you want to badmouth cops, I am all for it. But knowing that this is where it started or this is the reason, oh my God.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why you let this out there. How?
Yeah,
why would you voluntarily talk about this on the internet?
Well, now you understand the disclaimer. It's like, listen, we don't condone drunk driving. It's going to sound like we do quite a bit.
No, we condone ripping on jerks.
I had this, mental breakdown over a couple of days because he then tells me, if that happens and you have to plead guilty, you're going to have to do at least 3 days in jail. And I start having like a complete panic attack because I'm like, what am I going to tell my kids? Where I'm
mommy's got to go to jail. Because, yeah.
So I start having, total mental breakdown over this.
I love how he told her what he should say, what she should say to her
going to jail
kids.
is terrifying.
Yeah. Remember how mommy was arrested? I now have to go to jail. And this is a good lesson for all of you about consequences.
Could she have something on Justin where she's like, hey, I'm going to come on your platform and you have to defend me because of that thing that I know about you?
I wonder, because it doesn't make any sense the way he's talking to her. He's just like, I get it. This is crazy.
He seems logical, except in this instance.
Right. Someone posted in our Discord, Go Gadget Wang, posted a photo of Marissa Jones and it says, she's unfuckable and I have no standards. That's pretty good. I like it. All right, so you just heard that she's having a nervous breakdown. She's all upset. If she's found guilty, she has to go to jail for 3 days. And it just keeps getting worse.
My attorney was late and I was, continuing to have a mental breakdown. I was trying not to cry. I was trying to hold myself together. Of course, everybody else there had like a support person, but I didn't because I didn't want like a witness to my, like if I just totally lost it, I'd rather just be by myself.
Then why'd you bring it up? If you didn't want a support person, why are you complaining that you didn't have one then?
Yeah, to the world.
What's going on? Am I missing here? So now this guy, Justin Evans, the host, is going to try to sympathize with her and relate.
Let's say you didn't even drink alcohol. Let's just say you took a big old swig of NyQuil and got behind the wheel. You're technically driving under the influence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, two things. First off, don't drink NyQuil before you have to drive somewhere. That's fucking dumb. I don't know why anyone would do that. That'd be really stupid. But secondly, she didn't drink NyQuil, did she? She didn't have a cold. She was drinking with her friends at the bar, drove one of her friends home, and then smashed up a parked car. So why did you even bring that up? Can you believe it? Someone just doses you at the bar, and all of a sudden now you're responsible for driving intoxicated.
I feel like Justin would be a good lawyer.
And I don't think so. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I'm kind of surprised the lawyer didn't pitch that as like listen, you got roofied at the bar. Yeah. It's not a big deal.
Right.
We'll just say that. It's not your fault.
So what she was going for, what her attorney was trying to help her do, was get an ARD, accelerated rehabilitative disposition. And so I looked that up because she keeps saying ARD. ARDs are only available in the state of Pennsylvania where Marissa Jones lives. outside
hold
of
on.
Philly.
I'm making a note.
I was going to say, I thought maybe you would know that.
state.
Yes, I thought maybe you'd know that. There's a lot of Philly people involved in this show somehow. So that's why, again, I'm like, okay, it sounds exactly like her. This person who listens to her show says this is Marissa Jones. She's talking about this ARD she's trying to get. And so the attorney is successful for her. And she even complains about that.
I'm sitting there, all the attorneys were sitting up front, and I'm watching my attorney up there, like bragging to the other DUI attorneys. Can you believe it? I got my client ARD with leaving the scene, and they're like high-fiving, and I'm just like...
You should be up there high-fiving him as well. What are you talking about? You're upset that your attorney is taking a victory lap on your behalf? It's amazing.
Right.
He didn't think he'd pull it off, and he did.
Can you believe it?
I can't believe that works.
I just actually looked up a real thing. These books aren't for show.
Right, exactly. I'm thinking of Lionel Hutz.
I moved for a bad court thing. All right, so apparently, even though she got the ARD and now she's under probation for a year, and there's a bunch of things she has to do. She has to go to classes or something like that. This is shocking.
Now, if you get another DUI, it's still in their records for 10 years. So if you get another DUI, you can't go through ARD again. It then counts as a second DUI, which the consequences are way worse for each one. So this is like your one chance.
How is that fair? So wait, if you don't learn your lesson and just keep driving around drunk and smashing up cars, you get in more trouble?
She's already worried about the next one. Jesus Christ, woman.
Wow.
She's insane.
So it sounds to me like there's been a lot of close calls before this one.
Could you imagine you get pulled over driving drunk, like, don't even bother, officer, I've already got a DUI. Yeah, that's a double jeopardy. You're not getting me with that. All right, so this is my last clip from this, and it's amazing because you called this, Doug, as we were talking about it. So she's going through all of these costs that she had and complaining about that.
I don't know if they have these signs where you live, but there's these signs around here, and they're like, don't take a chance. You're about to blow $10,000.
Yeah.
The signs don't lie. I mean, I didn't have to pay $10,000
But you're
because
up around $5,000 at least now.
Yeah, and if you count the loss of my vehicle and what that was worth to me, that was a huge hit.
She's counting the loss of her vehicle. You're the one who destroyed your vehicle, ma'am.
You stupid fucking blabbermouth!
What an idiot. She's like, okay, the court fees, the attorney, the classes I had to take, $5,000, but also I had sentimental value with that car.
Oh, man.
You're insane. All right.
This whole thing,
crazy.
It makes no sense. Why would you do this? Why would you voluntarily share this information out there?
It's crazy.
Wow.
She really believes she can do no wrong.
Yeah. So
God,
it's an interesting peek into the mind of the woman who tried to ruin my life. Marissa Jones from The Vanish. Check it out, everybody.
Who are these podcasts?